Welcome to week 3 of distance learning. I am your teacher and host, Mr. Ritenour. If you'd like to make my face bigger and more pretty, click this YouTube button down here. All right, folks, I hope everyone had a great Easter. The Easter Bunny came and brought you some delicious yummies. I know the Easter Bunny brought Campbell some really cool stuff. It was so much fun to see the joy on his face. Finding the Easter eggs. He didn't really know what to do with them, but he was super excited to find them. Anyway, it's time to get back to work. Yesterday I gave you sort of the day off just because I feel like you need a little break every once in a while. Maybe you got to a book, maybe you didn't. No matter what though, we're back at it today and we're ready to work hard and play hard. So let's kick things off with a little video from our very own Bobby Ryder.
All right, on your mark, get set, go.
Don't forget to do that.
Only to the stop sign.
This is epic. They're going.
It's epic.
They're going. Oh no, Sissy's winning. Oh no, he's winning. Oh, Scott took first. I think Scott's winning. No.
All right, well, it was sort of hard to see who won, but I'm pretty sure it was Bobby who edged out in front and took the lead. So congratulations, Bobby. I love that you're outside riding your bike, and I really, really appreciate that you sent me that video. So thank you to you and your mother, Shannon, as well. Okay, let's hop right into it, folks. I need you to get either a piece of paper that you can write on or a whiteboard. Either one, you need something to write on, okay?
All right.
All right, let's see. Let's get rid of this. All right, so common sense lesson for today. It's a 3-part lesson because all 3 parts have to do with the same topic. Part 1, when borrowing something, always get permission from the owner. There's a reason why I have a picture of these guys, all right? This isn't just a bunch of kids putting their hands on a baseball bat. This is arguably the greatest children's movie of all time. It's called The Sandlot. And if we had PSSAs, we would be watching it afterward because it is truly a classic that every kid must watch before they become an adult. Now, The Sandlot, the whole plot of The Sandlot is based off of this lesson right here. So the main character, that's Squints, or sorry, not Squints, Smalls. You probably heard, "You're killing me, Smalls." That's this guy right here. He is trying to make friends with all these other guys. And when one of them hits the ball over the fence, and they can't get it back, that's this guy, Porter. Smalls decides, hey, I have a baseball at home in my dad's trophy case that I'm going to go get so we can keep playing. Well, do you think that Smalls asks for permission? No, he doesn't. He just takes the ball. And if he did ask for permission, he would have realized that the ball that he took was not just a regular baseball, but a ball signed by arguably the greatest baseball player of all time. Yep, you guessed it, Babe Ruth, the great Bambino. So Squints ends up hitting his first home run, and I'm not going to give too much away, I don't want to spoil it, but Squints hits that borrowed ball over the fence, and that borrowed ball that had Babe Ruth's signature on it is now gone. And so he can't put it back. Now you might be thinking to yourself, why can't they just go over the fence and get the ball? Well, I'm not going to tell you why. You're going to have to watch the movie, all right? The Sandlot. Okay, part 2 of today's lesson. When you do borrow something, so let's just say that you get permission from the owner and you're borrowing it, all right? Always return it in the condition that you got it in. And guess what? Because that person was nice enough to let you borrow it, if you can make it better, you should. Okay? So if you are borrowing someone's toy, you want to make sure you return it looking good. Now, if you can't, like, let's just say there's like a dirt mark on it and you clean it off, well, that's even better, right? You're making it even nicer for the person that let you borrow it. Here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to break it and then return it to them, just like nothing happened. Why do you think that's a bad idea? Yeah, it's rude, and two, they're never going to let you borrow anything ever again, right? Okay. The third part of the lesson. So you get permission from the person, right, to borrow something, and you take good care of it, and it's time to return it. Well, here's the third part that really drives me nuts. Always put it back in the proper place. And I have this example here of a bookshelf. Nothing irks me more than whenever I let students borrow my books that I bought with my money and they just throw it back on the shelves. They don't even put it up and down like they're supposed to. All right. Maybe they put the page side out instead of the spine. That is not the proper place. Or they put nonfiction in with fiction. Nothing makes me more upset than whenever I let a student borrow something and they don't follow one of these three rules. Okay? Please, if you're borrowing your brother or sister's stuff, follow these rules because then whenever they go to borrow something of yours, you can hold them to the same standard that you hold yourself to. Okay? All right, folks, that's your common sense lesson for today in 3 parts. Now we're going to move on to some reading, okay? Like I said, you need a pencil and a paper or a whiteboard and a marker, something to write on today, okay? All right, so we are going to talk about some vocabulary. I don't know why this is doing that. It's bothering me. There we go. We're going to talk about some vocabulary. And while we talk about the vocabulary, we're also going to be writing. So we're doing vocab and writing combined today, all right? So, vocabulary. Build robust vocabulary. All that word robust means is make it exciting, okay? You want exciting vocab. You don't want to just say everything is good, all right? A Florida wildlife tour. Let's read together. The scrublands of Florida are dry. Their climate is perfect for lizards, spiders, gopher tortoises, and mice. The Florida scrub lizard hunts prey such as ants, beetles, and spiders. Wolf spiders are hunters too. They hide in shallow burrows or under dry leaves, or in Mr. Ritenour's basement. Gopher tortoises eat many kinds of plants. They share long tunnels with other animals. You can see social animals such as wood storks or river otters on a visit to one of Florida's freshwater swamps. Wood storks live in colonies and wade in the water. River otters are playful. They rest on the water's banks and dive in to catch fish. Many snakes live in swamps. The venomous water moccasin, that's a snake, hunts rabbits. It curls into a spiral shape when it rests. All right. Now, let's go back and look at the captions, okay? So look in the bottom left corner here down by that tortoise. It says this, read along with me. When the gopher tortoise leaves its tunnel, mice might move in. The mice will line their nest with strands of Spanish moss. Okay, let's read the captions on the other side, up by that river otter. River otter. This man reels in a fish. Thank you, boys and girls, for reading along with me. Let's look at our vocabulary words, the yellow words on our page. Click the example that best fits the word pray. What is pray? Well, you probably know prey by 3rd grade, but just in case you don't, I'll tell you what the opposite of prey is. A predator. So a predator needs to find prey for food. Which example makes the most sense? A fly lands on the windowsill. A fly is caught in a spider web. Which one of those flies is the prey? The one on the windowsill or the one caught in the web? Very good. Example 2, right? Woohoo! I love that backflip dog. Yay! All right, spiral. What is a spiral? Well, a spiral is a type of noodle that goes round and round and round. A spiral is also the shape of a screw when you drill in. Let's look at our examples here. A road winds in a circle up the mountain, or a road that goes straight across the prairie. Which one of those is a spiral? A winding road in a circle, or a straight path? Very good. A winding circular road. All right, let's look at the word strands. We often use strands when we're talking about hair, or maybe yarn, or maybe even your carpet strands. Which example would best fit our definition? Strands. Mom uses a piece of warm flannel to make a scarf, or Mom uses long pieces of yarn to knit a scarf. So one giant piece or a bunch of long, skinny pieces. Exactly. Woohoo! All right, 3 more. Shallow. Well, you know shallow from swimming, right? The shallow end of the pool. It's the opposite of the deep end, right? So which example would make the most sense? Seth dives into the ocean, or Seth steps in a puddle? Which is more shallow, an ocean or a puddle? Good job. An ocean is definitely not shallow. Social. Well, you might have heard of the word social media. Social means that you're interacting with others. So which one of these examples best fits the word social? A hermit crab lives alone, or ants live in a colony? Well, you need to know what a colony is. A colony is a group of ants, just like a family of ants. So alone or in a group? Social. Good job. Ants living in a colony is a lot more social than a hermit crab that's living alone. And I'm glad that they included the word hermit crab, because later today we're going to go on a little tour of a rocky shore where there are hermit crabs. So next and last, I believe, reels. Reels is a word that I use all the time because I'm a fisherman. A reel is the part on the bottom of your fishing rod that has the string, all right, the line, as we call it whenever we're fishing. And you reel it in, and it spins around and around and around and around and around, and it collects all that string. We call that reeling in. So which one of these examples would make the most sense? Peter winds in the line from his pool and pulls a fish out of the water. Peter drags in a net that's full of fish. Which one is reels? Yeah, the first one. Winding in the line is reeling in. Yay! Now we can play catch. Good boy. Good boy. All right, folks. I told you there was going to be some writing involved. Now's our time to write a little bit. So I am going to give you a chance to write a sentence using our first vocabulary word that we talked about, pray. So I'm going to write my own sentence. You can just, I'm not even going to talk, I'm just going to write. I want you to write a sentence right now too. And if I finish before you, hey, that's okay. I'm not going to yell at you. I can't. I'm miles and miles away. You just hit pause, all right? So go ahead and write a sentence and make sure you use that word pray. Okay, pause if you need more time. My example sentence, a worm is prey for a bird. Because prey is something that can be eaten by another animal. So a bird is a predator, the worm is the prey. All right, next we've got shallow. Shallow. Go ahead and write a sentence using the word shallow. Pause if you need to. My example, I hurt myself when I cannonballed into the shallow end of the pool. True story. Always make sure you're jumping into the deep end. Next word, strands. Strands. Go ahead and write a sentence using the word strands. Pause if you need to. My example, I picked strands of hair out of the drain. That's a true story, folks. My wife, she sheds hair like crazy, right? And actually, it's not even her fault. Biologically, women lose hair after they have a baby. It's part of a hormone change. So for the last like year, I've been picking out so many hairs from the drain, and finally, Kaylee's hair is starting to grow back. And I'm not saying that women lose all their hair; they just lose some of it. So I've been picking out strands, and it's been driving me crazy. But I love my wife and my son. It was all worth it. All right, next word, social. Social. Oops, I don't know what happened. Go ahead and use the word social in a sentence. Pause if you need more time. Here's my example. I am a very social person, which is why the shutdown is killing me, Smalls. It's a true story. You know me, I like to talk and interact with you guys, with adults, with my son. Well, I can still interact with him, but with a lot of different people. And the shutdown, I'm not able to. So it's really, really hard. And I'm sure some of you, I can think of a few of you who are even more social than me. It's tough, right? Okay, two more. Spiral. Spiral, which, if you remember, is a circular um, item or motion, like in football, to throw a spiral. So go ahead and write a sentence. Pause if you need to. My example. I ate spiral pasta for dinner last week. True story. I put some marinara sauce on it. Uh, I just love spiral noodles for some reason. Last word. Reels. I've got a good one. Reels. Go ahead and use that in a sentence. Okay, pause if you need to. My example. Mr. Niche reels in small fish compared to Mr. R. Alright, I wish I could say that was true, but that would be lying. Mr. Niche is a really good fisherman, and he's reeled in some giant fish. Um, that is all the vocabulary words that we're going to cover today. So I hope that you enjoyed doing a little combination of reading, vocabulary, and writing. That was fun. All right, so I'm going to give you a chance right now to pause, take a break if you need to. Totally up to you, whatever you want to do. If not, let's keep going. All right, folks. If you remember from last week, we were on a virtual field trip. One second. Whew, excuse me. We were on a virtual field trip at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, which is in California, right on the Pacific Ocean. Um, I've been to the Monterey Bay Aquarium in real life, and it was probably my favorite aquarium I've ever been to anywhere in my life. It was really cool, especially their jellyfish exhibit. You can actually go to Monterey Bay Aquarium's website, and they have a ton of webcams that are on their exhibits, so you can watch river otters, jellyfish, all kinds of different things. So today we're going to continue our journey talking about different types of scientists. Specifically, we've been talking about zoologists, all right? Any type of scientist that studies animals is under the umbrella category of zoology. We talked about a herpetologist. Um, that's someone who studies amphibians like frogs. We also talked about a bat biologist, someone who specifically studies bats. And we left off studying about marine biologists. Marine biologists, literally, that means water and someone who studies living things. So a marine biologist is someone who studies water creatures. We looked at some sea stars. Those were really cool. Today we're going to shift our attention to another type of um, of animal or creature that marine biologists would study, and that is the hermit crab. So hermit crabs are famous because you can buy them and keep them as pets. A lot of pet stores sell them. A lot of times, if you go to the beach, you can buy them. They're pretty low maintenance creatures and they're kind of cool to look at. Let's check out a virtual reality view of a place where hermit crabs live in the wild, not a pet store. If it will let me, here we go. All right, so we are on the shore. A shore is a type of landform where the water meets land. And on this seashore, it's very rocky. And if you look down here, you've got, it looks like rocks, but those are actually mussels. All right, they kind of look like clams. They are animals that um, have a shell for protection. Oh, sorry, my phone just rang. If you look, obviously, like this is not completely in the wild because there are humans. You can see excavators in the background, but for the most part, this is all wild here. You've got like a cave. You can see this, the foam. Oh, I see a creature. Do you see the creature? Yeah, it's a sea star. We talked about that last time. That is really cool. So the shoreline continues. It's very rocky. It would definitely be dangerous to walk without any type of shoes. And we're all the way back around again. So that's where hermit crabs live in the wild, right on the seashore. They need land as well as water. Now we're going to look at, this is perfect because we were just talking about prey and predators. The hermit crab is a prey to a very popular predator that you might know that has 8 legs. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, an octopus, right? Squids and octopi, I think, are they love to munch down on hermit crabs. But hermit crabs have developed a special way of defending themselves. Let's check it out.
Once it locates and identifies a potential prey, this octopus knows it must be both cautious and determined if it is to surprise a crab before it hides in the relative safety of its shell. And now the real battle, one of patience, skill, and strength, begins. The hermit crab has managed to retreat into its mobile fortress, but this young octopus will try by all means possible to find a weak spot or a hole through which it can get hold of its prey and pull it out. Despite extraordinary dexterity and persistence, this octopus still lacks either the strength or the expertise to come out on top this time. When fully grown, it will be much easier to extract these stubborn crustaceans from their shells.
All right, so there was one word at the very end of that video that I thought was really cool that they mentioned. The word was crustacean. Try saying that word, crustacean. A crustacean is an animal that has a shell. All right, think crusty, like, you know, a crustacean, like a hermit crab, uses its shell to defend itself. But the shell is not actually a part of its body. It can get rid of its shell and get a new one. At least most crustaceans. So that hermit crab was able to defend that squid, but as you heard them say, whenever that becomes an adult, it's going to be able to get into that hermit crab's shell and suck out the hermit crab. So obviously hermit crabs are prey, and in the wild they do a great job defending themselves. So anyway, that's our little bit of science for today, and now we're going to switch gears to some social studies. Okay, so we are going to keep talking about, sorry, whenever I say keep talking, I mean we're going to continue our journey throughout U.S. history. Last time we talked about General Custer, and we also talked about Wounded Knee, and the general theme was the time period that we often call the Indian Wars. If you've ever played Cowboys and Indians at home, I know I played that a lot growing up. This would have been that time period, all right? So after the Civil War, all the way up until about the turn of the 20th century. So that would be about the start of the 1900s, all right? So we are not going to review Custer and Wounded Knee, but quick reminder here, this figure on the left here is Custer, and then you've got Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, the two Native American leaders, and they would be like the last major tribe chiefs in Native American history, really, because after the Indian Wars, pretty much all Native Americans in the United States were then living on Indian reservations at that point. So there's no more real wild Indians after the Indian Wars, which is sad, but it's part of our journey as America, was taking over the land. And you can argue a million different ways of how we should have done it differently, but the truth of the matter is we were believed it was our destiny, remember, manifest destiny, to control from the East Coast to the West Coast. And nothing was going to get in our way. And that leads us to a really cool part of our history that we don't talk about very often. In fact, I'm sure maybe some of your parents don't even remember this because it's not that popular of a war, but it did happen. It happened right at the end of the 19th century, and it's called the Spanish-American War. Now, oftentimes wars are named after the two people or the two countries that are involved in fighting. So, as you can see here, Spanish is the country of Spain. American, the country of America, are in a war. Now, what's interesting about the Spanish-American War is it's not fought in Spain and it's not fought in America. All right, so you'll see as we read where it was fought, who it was fought against, and which side won. Okay, so I'm going to read through, and I want you to read along with me, okay? We're getting a lot of reading practice with our social studies. All right. In 1898, the USA was emerging as a superpower. Now pause. What is a superpower? What do you think? Exactly. A country that controls kind of the majority of the world, right? Someone that you don't mess with is a superpower. Let's keep reading. Despite being weakened by the Civil War, our country was growing rapidly. What does the word rapidly mean? Act quickly. We're growing. The flame of democracy has always burned brightly in the hearts of Americans since we felt we were the founders of democracy. Sorry, France. So pause. The flame of democracy is a figurative term. It's not literal. There's not like a a fire that burns for democracy. The flame of democracy figuratively means that Americans believe in democracy as the best form of government, right? Tyranny, which is whenever someone controls other people, is our enemy. We believe that the people should decide what they want for their country. And I made a joke about France because the French think that they are the ones that started democracy, and there were a lot of French philosophers that had some good thoughts on democracy. I'm thinking of one, Montesquieu in particular, but the United States actually was the first country to form a democracy in the sense of a democratic republic, and that happened in 1781, whenever the United States won the Revolutionary War, which we already talked about. Okay, let's keep reading. When other countries were being threatened by governments other than democracy, America felt an obligation to step in and help. Pause. What does that mean? We felt an obligation to step in and help. It means that we felt like we were the protectors, all right? If there was somebody getting bullied, we would step in and stand up for them. Keep reading. The same is still true to this day. In the Middle East, right? There are some small pockets of people in the Middle East that want freedom, like we have in America, and we stick up for them. All right, we don't let terrorists control anywhere in the world, or at least we try not to. We are freedom fighters, truly. All right, back to our slide. The country of Spain still controlled the island of Cuba, a mere 103 miles off the coast of Florida. That's the same distance as Mercer to Cleveland, so it's really not that far. Think about how far you can launch a rocket or a bomb. All right, would you like to have terrorists living in Cleveland while we live in Mercer? No, right? That's way too close. Let's keep reading. The Spanish did not want to give up control to the Cubans and refused to sell the land. The U.S. felt compelled to protect the quote little guy from the quote big bully, so they sent a naval ship to protect the island. So I'm going to show you a quick picture here. It's kind of hard to see because of my highlighter, so let me try to bring this forward here. There we go. So if you can see, do you see where Niagara Falls is? Yeah, you do? Okay. Right up here. This is like Mercer, that red dot that I just drew. Well, the United States controls all this territory down here. This is Florida. This is the southern coast of Florida. Look how close Cuba is. 103 miles by boat. Very, very close. So this is the country, this country right here that I'm outlining, that Spain is in control of. So Spain controls them, but they're their own country as well. And they don't want Spain to control them anymore. They want to kick Spain out. Okay, so let me clear this really quick. We are going to help them. Let's keep reading. An unknown explosion went off on the USS Maine, causing the ship to sink. Now, this is why I love studying this war, because it started off of a lie. Right? Pay attention. A newspaper writer named Joseph Pulitzer writes that the ship was sunk by Spanish submarines, which incited America to declare war against Spain. So that is a bold-faced lie. Joseph Pulitzer wanted the Cubans, he believed in the Cubans and wanted them to be free. So he wrote his story based on a lie. He said that the Spanish blew up the American ship so that the Americans would be obviously upset. They'd be ticked, ready for revenge. And that would jump us right into the middle of the war. What really happened is that there was well, it's kind of a controversy and it's a legend, so it's not completely true. But a lot of people believe that it was actually Americans that wanted the government to get involved in the war that set off the explosion and was not the actual Spanish. So this is a perfect example of how the media, that's the newspaper people back then, the media were able to twist the minds of Americans by using their words. Now, nowadays, you see all the time, you see news stories that are totally not true, and it can really change your opinions on things. You just have to be really careful, boys and girls, that you don't fall victim to what happened here, where someone says something in the news that's actually not true. It's really important that you read as many news articles as you can to get the truth. And in this case, the truth was disguised as a Spanish attack on America so that Americans would get involved. Okay, there's only one problem. The US Army is depleted from the blank war. What war did we just get out of? It's fought between the North and the South. Yeah, the Civil War. In the Civil War, there were 600,000 soldiers died. That's a lot of fighting men. Sympathetic, though, to the Cuban cause and outraged by the sunken ship USS Maine, a large group of volunteer Americans joined together to form the Rough Riders. Okay, so you don't have a lot of troops right now because America's still recovering from the Civil War. So instead of actually sending our army, we send a bunch of volunteers, right? That includes college students, athletes especially. It includes maybe veterans of the Civil War or people that just wanted to fight. They are led by future President Theodore, also known as Teddy Roosevelt. So Teddy Roosevelt was one of these people that joined the Rough Riders. He was the Rough Rider leader. He's the most famous. Together with the US Navy, they defeat the Spanish and force Spain to leave the Western Hemisphere. By helping Cuba earn its freedom, the USA earned respect and praise from many countries around the world. Everybody likes a hero, and the US was happy to wear the mask and cape. So what do I mean by that? Well, the United States enjoys being praised by other countries, especially when it comes to freedom and democracy. So the United States boosted its reputation whenever it helped out Cuba. Okay, now that we've kind of read about the Spanish-American War, we've seen the map. Here's a picture of the newspaper article. This is look at the caption right here, okay? Destruction of the warship USS Maine was the work of an enemy. $50,000 reward right here. Assistant Secretary Roosevelt convinced the explosion on the warship was not an accident. So this magazine, or this newspaper I mean, everyone read it. There was no Facebook, there was no Fox News, CBS, NBC, you could watch on TV. There's newspapers. That's how people found out. So if every single newspaper is saying that the ship was destroyed by the Spanish, what do you think the people are going to believe? Exactly. The newspaper. And that's what propelled us into this war. Now, the war wasn't a bad thing, completely bad, because the United States ended up helping the Cubans win, so we were on the winning side, and because of that, we were given Guam, which is a little island in the Pacific. We were able to buy the Philippines, which is another island in the Pacific. Um, we definitely benefited from it as well. So this would be a lot more fun to do in person, um, but I'm gonna try my best here. Oh, so that was Cuba and Spain. There we go. Both of those are Spain. That's the USS Maine sinking. That's Teddy Roosevelt. The ship sinking. That's a map of Cuba. That's a map of Cuba. That's Teddy Roosevelt. He's a rough rider. Yay! I bet one of you guys could beat me. Alright, so let's watch a quick video that highlights some of the key things about the Spanish-American.
In 1895, a little country called Cuba, which is off the coast of Florida, was owned by Spain. Cuba, like the United States, wanted its independence and started fighting for it. Spain responded to this by sending 200,000 troops to Cuba to end the little country's fight for independence. The tricky part for the United States was that there were American citizens living in Cuba, and the U.S. was concerned for their safety. To offer some comfort and protection, the U.S. sent the battleship USS Maine to sit off the coast of Cuba. The 392 American sailors helped the American citizens living in Cuba to feel safe. But things got messy when on February 15, 1898, a mysterious explosion blew the front off the USS Maine and sunk the ship. The Spanish were blamed. United States President William McKinley and the United States Congress declared war. The U.S. Navy responded by sending a naval squadron of ships to destroy the Spanish fleet surrounding Cuba, but a land attack was harder. Just 33 years earlier, the Civil War had taken a total of 600,000 American lives. The Army was too small to fight another war, so U.S. volunteers were recruited. A collection of cowboys, college athletes, miners, police, and others joined up. These new recruits were called the Rough Riders, and one of their leaders was Theodore Roosevelt, a future president of the United States. The Rough Riders attacked the Spanish, and 113 days after the war had started, it ended. A Treaty of Paris was signed, and Spain surrendered Cuba and gave Guam and Puerto Rico to the United States. Spain also sold the Philippines to the U.S. for $20 million. This ended Spain's claim on other countries outside of its own. The Spanish people turned their resources and energy to improving their own country. The United States found itself as a new world power with increased respect from other nations.
Okay, so I really think that video does a good job of giving you the picture so you can visualize the Spanish-American War. Major takeaways: America is growing as a superpower. America is willing to stick up for small countries. And another thing is that sometimes the media is not honest and they can lie, which has big impact on our government. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed your U.S. history for today. I could do U.S. history every day, but unfortunately we don't have enough time for that. Okay, so we are going to call it quits for today, and I'm going to let you guys go work on your Google form because we didn't cover any math. Instead, in your Google form, there's going to be the opportunity for you to work on some number facts on a website that you actually have already used in the past. I think it was not last week, but 2 weeks ago. All right, well, I miss you guys. I hope to see you tomorrow night at 7 for our weekly powwow. And I hope that you had a great Easter. Miss you, love you. Mr. R is officially out.